They forgot my birthday. But the worst part wasn't the cake nobody cut. It was the $20,000 bill they sent right after. Instead of an apology, they demanded money. And I sent back exactly $1. Then I vanished, leaving their entire empire of debt to collapse without a word of warning. Want to know how I disappeared? And how a family can use their own blood to drain both your wallet and your soul? Listen to the end. Because I documented every dollar, every cut, every sacrifice they took for granted. I'm Isabel Grant, and until 3 months ago, I was the family ATM. 34 years old, senior auditor at Meridian Financial Services, living in a quiet corner of Cedar Falls, Iowa. I had a tidy apartment, a reliable Honda, and the dubious honor of being the only person in my family with actual money management skills. My stepmother, Marilyn, married my dad when I was 8. Dad died when I was 16, leaving behind a mountain of medical debt and a family that had grown comfortable with my scholarships, my part-time jobs, and eventually, my salary. Hugh, my stepfather, came into the picture when I was 20. He brought his own daughter Emily, now 29, and son Liam, now 24. What he didn't bring was financial stability. By the time I turned 25, I had become the family's unofficial bank. Emily's wedding. I covered the flowers when the budget ran over. Liam's car payments. Somehow my responsibility when he couldn't find work. Marilyn's prescription costs. Well, someone had to keep her heart medication coming. I told myself it was temporary, that families help each other, that eventually, they'd stand on their own feet. 7 years later, I was still waiting. October 15th was my birthday. I had planned something small at the Rusty Lantern, a cozy pub downtown where I sometimes grabbed dinner alone. I ordered a red velvet cake, hung up a few childhood photos, and sent a casual text to the family group chat. Having a little birthday thing at the Lantern tonight if anyone wants to stop by. Nothing fancy, just cake and good company. I sat there from 6 p.m. until closing time. The bartender, a kind woman named Janet, noticed me checking my phone every few minutes. Around 9, she slid a free cocktail across the bar. On the house, honey. Happy birthday. I cut myself a slice of cake, took a picture, and posted it on social media with a caption that felt more honest than I intended. Sometimes the sweetest moments are the ones nobody asks about. Not one family member responded. Not one person showed up. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My heart jumped, thinking maybe they'd remembered. Maybe they felt bad about missing my birthday. Instead, I found a detailed breakdown of expenses for Hugh's upcoming 65th birthday party at Blue Shore Retreat, an upscale resort 3 hours away. The total, $20,000, split between Emily, Liam, and me. Emily had already sent her portion. Liam had promised to pay by Friday. My share was $8,000. The message from Marilyn was matter of fact. Isabel, please Venmo me by Friday. Hugh deserves a proper celebration after everything he's done for this family. I stared at my phone, sitting on my unmade bed in yesterday's clothes, crumbs from my lonely birthday cake still on the nightstand. Not one mention of my birthday. Not one acknowledgement that they'd forgotten. Just an invoice, as if I were a business partner rather than a daughter. I opened my Venmo app and sent exactly $1 with a message. Happy birthday. Then I changed every password they'd ever used. The joint account I'd set up for Marilyn's medical expenses. The credit card I'd added Emily to for emergencies. The auto-pay system covering Liam's student loans. I didn't block them immediately. I wanted to see how long it would take them to notice. The first call came 2 hours later. Emily, hysterical. My card was declined at Target. What did you do? I let it go to voicemail. The second call was Liam. Isabel, what the hell? My loan payment bounced and now I'm getting penalty fees. Voicemail. The third call was Marilyn. You're being childish. Change those passwords right now. By evening, I had 37 missed calls and a string of increasingly angry texts. I read each one while eating leftover Chinese takeout. feeling something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. That night, I slept with my phone on silent for the first time in a decade. The next morning, I started documenting everything: every wire transfer, every bill I'd covered, every emergency that had somehow become my responsibility. I pulled bank statements, credit card records, receipts I'd saved out of habit. The numbers were staggering. In 7 years, I had given my family $202,000. Not loaned, given, because they never paid anything back. Emily's wedding, $12,000 for the photographer when theirs canceled last minute. Liam's car, $15,000 down payment, plus monthly payments when he lost his job. Marilyn's medications, $800 monthly for 3 years. Hugh's dental work, $6,000 for implants. Emily's apartment deposit, $3,000 when she couldn't qualify a loan. Liam's graduation trip to Europe, $4,000 because he deserved it after working so hard. The list went on, and on, and on. I created a spreadsheet, color-coded by family member: green for Emily, blue for Liam, red for Marilyn and Hugh. The green and blue sections were massive. The red section was a sea of medical bills and household expenses. Then I looked at what they'd given me for birthdays, Christmas, or just because over the same 7 years. The total came to about $600. I saved the spreadsheet as Family Investment Portfolio and attached it to an email I started writing but never sent. Instead, I printed it out and taped it to my bathroom mirror. Every morning, I looked at those numbers while brushing my teeth. On day 4 of my radio silence, they showed up at my apartment. I watched them from my window: Marilyn in her best guilt trip outfit, Hugh looking uncomfortable, Emily gesturing wildly, Liam checking his phone. They knocked for 10 minutes before Marilyn started shouting through the door. "Isabel, we know you're in there. Stop being ridiculous." I turned on my security camera's external speaker. "I'm not being ridiculous. I'm being selective about who gets access to my time and money." "You're my daughter," Marilyn's voice cracked. "I stayed up all night worrying about you." "You stayed up all night worrying about your meal ticket," I replied, my voice steady. "There's a difference." Emily pushed forward to the camera. "You're destroying this family. How can you be so selfish?" "Selfish?" I laughed, and it sounded foreign to my own ears. "I've been paying for this family's lifestyle since I was 25. I've covered your mistakes, your emergencies, your wants disguised as needs. When was the last time any of you asked how I was doing? When was the last time any of you offered to help me with anything?" "We're family," Liam shouted. "Family helps each other." "You're right," I said. "Family does help each other. But I've been the only one helping for 7 years. Now I'm helping myself." Hugh finally spoke up. "Isabel, be reasonable. We can work this out." "Can we?" "Because I have a spreadsheet that says I've given you $202,000 over 7 years. How much are you prepared to pay back?" The silence stretched for a full minute. "That's what I thought," I said, and turned off the speaker. They stayed for another hour, alternating between pleading and threatening. I ordered pizza and watched Netflix while they exhausted themselves on my doorstep. The next morning, I found an email from my bank about suspicious activity on an account I'd forgotten about. Hugh and Marilyn were trying to access the joint account I'd opened 5 years ago when they nearly lost their house. I'd co-signed on the mortgage to save them from foreclosure. They were attempting to take out a second mortgage against the house, using my name as a co-signer. I called my lawyer, Deborah Mendez, a sharp woman who'd helped me with my estate planning the year before. "Can they do that without my permission?" I asked. "Not legally," she said. "But they can try, and it might work if the bank doesn't verify properly. I'd recommend freezing your credit and sending a formal notice to withdraw from any joint financial obligations. What if they can't make the payments without my involvement? Then they'll have to sell the house or face foreclosure." I thought about that house. The kitchen where I'd eaten countless awkward family dinners. The living room where I'd watched Hugh and Marilyn argue about money while I silently calculated how much I could afford to give them. The guest room where I'd slept during visits, always feeling like I was imposing even though I was bankrolling their lives. "Do it," I said. Send the notice. That afternoon, I opened a new bank account at a different institution. I transferred everything except $1,000, which I left in my old account for any automatic payments I might have missed. Then I went shopping. Not for anything practical. Not for anything the family might need. I bought myself a cashmere sweater, expensive perfume, and a bottle of wine that cost more than I'd usually spend on groceries in a week. I felt guilty for exactly 10 minutes. Then I felt free. The legal notice hit them like a bomb. Marilyn called me 63 times in one day. I know because I counted. Emily sent a string of texts that would have made a sailor blush. Liam tried a different approach, sending long voice messages about how I was abandoning family and breaking hearts. Hugh sent one text. Please reconsider. We're desperate. I almost wavered at that. Almost. Then I remembered my birthday cake, eaten alone while they planned their $20,000 party. I texted back. I reconsidered every month for 7 years. Now it's your turn. The house went on the market 3 weeks later. I drove by it once, just to see the for sale sign. The lawn was overgrown, the paint was peeling, and there was a pile of furniture on the curb. They were selling everything they could. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not sadness, just nothing. Deborah called me with updates. The house sold quickly, but for less than they'd hoped, after paying off the mortgage and her fees. They had enough left over to cover moving expenses and maybe 2 months' rent somewhere smaller. They're asking if you'll accept a payment plan for the money you documented, she said. They're proposing $50 a month. I did the math. At $50 a month, they'd pay off their debt to me in approximately 337 years. Tell them no, I said. They're also asking if you'll consider a family meeting to discuss reconciliation. I thought about it. I pictured sitting around a table with them, listening to Marilyn cry about how hard their lives had become, watching Emily roll her eyes at my dramatics, hearing Liam promise to do better while secretly planning his next request for money. No, I said again. The only family member who reached out with any semblance of understanding was my Aunt Helena, Marilyn's sister. She called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making dinner for one. I heard about the house, she said without preamble. Marilyn's been calling me every day, crying about how cruel you've become. And what do you think? I asked. I think you finally grew a backbone, she said. I've been watching them bleed you dry for years. I tried to tell Marilyn she was taking advantage, but she always said you were happy to help. I thought I was, I admitted. For a while. What changed? I stirred my pasta, considering. They forgot my birthday. It sounds small, but it was like suddenly seeing the whole picture clearly. I realized I wasn't family to them. I was a resource. They're scared, Helena said. They don't know how to function without your safety net. They'll figure it out, I said. People are remarkably adaptable when they have to be. What about you? Are you okay? It was the first time anyone had asked me that question in months. I'm getting there, I said. 2 months later, I got a call from Emily. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Isabel? Her voice was small, defeated. I need to ask you something. I'm listening. Did you really mean it? About the money? About all of it? I sat down on my couch, looking around my apartment. I'd redecorated since cutting them off. New furniture, new artwork, new plants. Everything was exactly how I wanted it. Yes, I said. I meant it. But what about us? What about being a family? Emily, when was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you asked about my life without needing something? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without me reminding you? She was quiet for a long time. I don't know. I do. The answer is never. You've never done any of those things. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change 7 years of taking me for granted. What if we changed? What if we did better? I closed my eyes, feeling the old familiar pull of hope and obligation. Emily, I hope you do change. I hope you learn to stand on your own feet, to appreciate what you have, to think of others before yourself. but I can't be your practice dummy anymore. So that's it? We're not family anymore? We're related, I said. But family is about more than blood. It's about respect, reciprocity, and love. I gave you all three for 7 years. You gave me bills. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my quiet apartment, watching the sunset through my window. For the first time in my adult life, I had no one else's problems to solve, no one else's expenses to cover, no one else's crises to manage. It was terrifying and wonderful. I started therapy the next week. Dr. Patricia Combs was a woman in her 50s who specialized in family trauma and boundary setting. During our first session, she asked me what I wanted to achieve. I want to figure out how to be myself, I said, not just the person who fixes everyone else's problems. Tell me about yourself, she said. What do you like? What makes you happy? I stared at her for a full minute, realizing I didn't know how to answer. I like my job, I said finally. I'm good with numbers. What else? I don't know. I haven't thought about it in years. That became our work, rediscovering who I was when I wasn't defined by my usefulness to others. I learned that I liked hiking, that I was good at photography, that I enjoyed cooking elaborate meals for myself, that I could spend entire weekends reading without feeling guilty about not being productive. I also learned that what I'd experienced had a name: financial abuse. My family had systematically exploited my resources while giving me just enough emotional scraps to keep me engaged. They'd trained me to equate love with money, to measure my worth by my willingness to sacrifice. Dr. Combs helped me understand that cutting them off wasn't cruel, it was necessary. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, she said during one session. You tried that for 7 years. How did it work out? It didn't, I admitted. I was always cold. 6 months after my birthday, I got a letter from Hugh, not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered to my apartment. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me curious. Isabel, it read, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you that I understand now. Marilyn and I have been going to counseling, and our therapist helped us see how we treated you. We leaned on you too heavily, expected too much, and gave too little in return. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for you to come back. I just wanted you to know that we see it now. We see how wrong we were. I hope you're happy. I hope you're free. You deserve both. Hugh. I read it 3 times, waiting for the anger or the sadness or the urge to call him back. Instead, I felt something like closure. I wrote back, thank you for seeing it. I hope you and Marilyn find your way. I hope Emily and Liam learn to stand on their own. I am happy. And I am free. Take care. Hugh. I mailed it the next day and felt a weight I didn't know I was carrying lift from my shoulders. A year later, I was promoted to senior partner at Meridian Financial Services. I used my raise to take a 3-week vacation to Ireland, something I'd dreamed about for years but never felt I could afford. I hiked the cliffs of Moher, stayed in tiny bed and breakfasts, and spent my 35th birthday in a pub in Galway, surrounded by strangers who became friends for the evening. I called Dr. Combs from my hotel room that night. I think I'm ready to try dating again, I said. What makes you feel ready? I know who I am now. I know what I'm worth. I know the difference between love and obligation. And what are you worth? I looked out my hotel window at the Irish countryside, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. More than $20,000, I said. More than being taken for granted. More than being someone's backup plan. Much more, she agreed. I met David 3 months after I returned from Ireland. He was a teacher, divorced, with 2 teenagers who lived with him every other week. He was kind and funny and completely mystified by my insistence on paying for my own dinner on our first date. I like paying my own way, I explained. Okay, he said easily. But if we keep dating, can we at least alternate who pays? We can negotiate, I said, and he laughed. The first time he met my friends, he asked them about my family. She never talks about them, he said. Are they close? My friend Jennifer, who'd watched the whole saga unfold, chose her words carefully. Isabel has worked very hard to build healthy boundaries with her family. She's better off without them. David nodded thoughtfully. That must have been difficult. It was, I said later, when we were alone. But it was necessary. Do you ever miss them? I considered the question. I miss the idea of them, the family I thought we were, but I don't miss the reality of being their ATM. Their ATM, I told him the story. All of it. The birthday, the bill, the years of financial abuse, the house, the final break. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious as I talked. Jesus, he said when I finished. $20,000 for a birthday party? That they didn't invite me to plan or attend. They just wanted me to pay for it. And they forgot your birthday? Completely. He shook his head. I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm not sorry you got out. Me neither. We've been together for 2 years now. He's met my Aunt Helena, who comes to visit twice a year and always marvels at how much happier I seem. He's never pressured me to reconcile with my family. Never suggested that blood should trump boundaries. Instead, he's helped me build a new kind of family. His kids, who call me almost stepmom Isabel, and actually remember my birthday. His sister and her husband, who include me in their holiday traditions. Our friends, who've become chosen family. Last month, I ran into Liam at the grocery store. He looked older, more tired, but also more mature. We made awkward small talk in the cereal aisle. How's everyone? I asked, not sure why. Getting by, he said. Emily's working 2 jobs now. Marilyn and Hugh moved to a smaller place. Mom's health is, well, it's not great. I felt a familiar tug of guilt and obligation. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? He asked. Not unkindly. Sorry, I mean. I thought about it. I'm sorry she's struggling. I'm not sorry I'm not paying for her struggles anymore. He nodded slowly. I get it. I think I finally get it. Do you? I'm in therapy now, he said. Learning about boundaries and stuff. I realized I never really knew you, you know? I knew you as the person who solved problems, but I never knew you as you. I didn't know me either, I admitted. I'm still figuring it out. Are you happy? I thought about David making me laugh over breakfast that morning, about the photography class I'd signed up for, about the trip to Japan I was planning for next year, about the fact that my biggest financial worry was whether to max out my 401k or put more money into my travel fund. Yes, I said. I'm happy. Good, he said, and meant it. You deserve to be happy. We parted ways in the parking lot, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but understanding. He was growing up, figuring things out, learning to be responsible for his own life. That was good. That was what I'd always wanted for him. But it wasn't my job to guide him through it anymore. I drove home to David making dinner, to a house that was entirely mine, to a life built on my own terms. I thought about the woman I'd been 2 years ago, sitting alone with birthday cake, believing that love meant emptying my bank account for people who couldn't be bothered to remember my birthday. I thought about the woman I'd become, who knew the difference between generosity and exploitation, between family and obligation, between love and financial abuse. I thought about that $1 I'd sent instead of $8,000 and how it had been the most expensive dollar I'd ever spent. Because it bought me my freedom. They forgot my birthday. They sent me a bill. I sent them $1 and disappeared from their lives. It was the best investment I ever made. Sometimes freedom costs everything you thought you owed to people who never deserved it in the first place. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be used. Sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the family you're born into. I learned all of this the hard way. One forgotten birthday and one $20,000 bill at a time. But I learned it, and now I'm free. And I've never been happier to be worth more than $1 to the people who matter.